All righty. Welcome. I am Heather Pierce Campbell, the legal website warrior. I'm an attorney and legal coach based here in Seattle, Washington, and serving entrepreneurs around the United States and the world. Welcome to another episode of Guts, Grit, and Great Business. I'm super excited to bring my new friend, Craig Valine, to you today. Craig and I connected through a mutual connection who is one of my favorite people, Melanie, who also runs a podcast. And I just think that Craig is going to share so much genius with us all, any of us who are in the entrepreneurial space and have ever struggled with our marketing. And I personally don't know any entrepreneurs who haven't at some point struggled with that. So it's going to be a powerful conversation. We're going to have a lot of fun. Craig, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much.
Yes, it's so great to have you here today. So, for folks that don't know Craig, let me introduce Craig and we'll share a little bit about his background and his experience. Craig is a marketing performance strategist from Pasadena, California. He is known among many as the former struggling consultant. That gives me the giggles. I love that. So many of us are former somethings, right? Craig helps entrepreneurial consultants, coaches, experts, and service professionals increase growth and profits without spending a lot more time, money, and effort in the process, all based on his own experience of rising from a long period of failure to consistent success as a consultant. He does that through his EMP Alliance membership community, Advanced Marketing Mastermind, and private client relationships. Now, and I dug up some additional information about Craig on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is one of my favorite places to spend time, but a bit more detail about how he does his work. Craig helps entrepreneurial businesses and professional practices enhance marketing performance by first testing and gaining leverage on current marketing strategies, tactics, campaigns, to get a far better result for about the same time, money, and effort that you're already spending. He also uncovers hidden marketing assets and underutilized or overlooked opportunities for profit within a business. The goal is always to find more profit within your business, starting with your marketing. As a lead generation strategist, he also helps the same types of business and practices attract only highly qualified prospective customers, clients, and patients through more effective, targeted direct marketing campaigns using unique sales and marketing strategies. Craig was also formerly an independent business advisor for Dan Kennedy's GKIC Insider Circle, which is a group of entrepreneurs, business owners, sales professionals, and professional practice owners interested in learning more about the direct marketing strategies and techniques. He led monthly chapter meetings in the Los Angeles area, providing a unique opportunity for local entrepreneurs to learn about a special type of direct marketing that goes against traditional big dumb marketing seen all around every day. The type of marketing Craig teaches is measurable, affordable, and effective, and lots of fun to implement and profit from. Craig, I hope I didn't say too much. I just, marketing is a big conversation, right? And there's
Sure.
so many ways that people can approach marketing, teach other people about marketing. And I love that you really dig into the numbers and make things more effective for people so they don't just feel like, they're throwing spaghetti against a wall. Because I think that's how a lot of people feel.
Right, right. Yeah, people are already doing things. People who are currently in business, who've been in business for a little while, if they are making any money, they're doing something that is connecting with somebody else. So
Mm-hmm.
it may be being at the front of the room, it may be being on a podcast, it may be sending emails out, it may be organically posting social media. And the fact is that there's always opportunity for growth, if you will. There's always an opportunity for a better result. And what we have to do is really just test to see how much better result can I get for about the same effort I'm already spending. So what I just said was one way to say something. Now I could try a different way to say it and you might go, bingo, I get it. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like same effort, same time, same, no money involved, but I might get a far better result just by testing a different message to
Yeah.
increase the result.
Yeah. Do you find that the concept of testing, right? Because we always hear this, like split test, try this, try that, measure the results. Do you find that that intimidates people?
I do. I
Yeah,
do. So, you have to, people always feared tests, no matter how good they were at it. So it's like you have to speak everyday language. I just say compare one thing against another, try this versus this. It's the same, again, same thing for the same time, money, and effort I'm already spending. It's one way to say something versus another. And
right.
generally, you know, there was a movie called Philadelphia with Denzel Washington and Tom Hanks.
Mm,
And if whoever's listening doesn't remember that movie very well, it was Tom Hanks, who was a lawyer who lost his job because of an illness.
yep.
And so he was suing for wrongful termination. And the people up on the you're a lawyer, so fill in the blanks if I people sitting up on
Was it the jury
the
stand?
chair,
Mm-hmm.
being yeah. Anyway, I'm
Was
filled
it
with
the
vocabulary
witness,
today.
the witnesses, or the jury stand?
The
Jury
witnesses.
box. Witnesses.
So
Yep.
they were all using very legal jargon, and Denzel Washington said, "Look, you're speaking this gobbledygook that nobody can really understand. Speak to me like I'm a 6-year-old. Explain it to me
Mhm.
like I'm a 6-year-old." So my nickname is No BS Craig. I tell it just like it is, as simple as my son could when he was 6 years old. And I often asked him, I said, "Do you understand that?" "No." "Well, let me try it this way. Let me
Yeah.
try it this way."
Yeah.
So I try to say things in a very, very fundamental way, because no matter how intelligent you are, or well read you are, you understand basic language.
Hmm.
And it's okay if I don't come across sounding like a Harvard professor. If I can get the communication across and someone understands it, then I've done my job.
Yeah. Well, that's a really important point to be made, that sometimes we have to hear things, first of all, multiple times
Mm.
and in multiple ways for it to really ignite change or allow us to understand it enough to take action. And I think you're right. Even the language that we choose, somebody saying, split test or test versus experiment or play around with that headline or, something else, is a very different experience on the receiving end. It brings to mind, so when I was in college and I studied business, I was a business major. I took my first economics course from, I can't even remember the professor now, but I was struggling, right? And I am not somebody accustomed to struggle in, most any of my classes. And I went in and met with an advisor at the university and just said, like, it felt like oil and water. It was such a disconnect, and it was just something about the way that I learned. I could not learn from this professor, and I didn't recognize it. I just knew I was struggling. And this advisor said, here's what I recommend that we do, because you're taking such a, I think I had like a pretty high class load at the time, so I was a few credits over what was typical for kids to take at the time. And she just said, let's just put this class on hold. You cannot complete this course this quarter, and then come back, take it from the other professor who teaches this class next
Mm.
quarter, see if it fits, which is exactly what I did. And it was like night and day. I took the next class from the other professor, and I loved economics so much, I added it as a second major.
Wow.
So the power of hearing something in the way that you learn, and and from the standpoint of teaching a concept, trying it out in different ways and explaining it in different language, I think is really, really important.
Yeah, well, that just goes, that example was about the word testing, and does it confuse people and does it intimidate
Hmm.
people? But that lesson that we just shared with each other applies to your marketing message too. Your marketing message
Yes.
in reaching your ideal prospect, they may not get it the first time. They may not get it the second time. And that's why you constantly have to do that thing called testing to get it until you get it right, until
Yeah.
they go, yes, now I understand what he does. I can understand how it will benefit me. I can understand why I should do this.
Yes.
Very powerful lesson.
Yeah, it's huge. So, Craig, share with us, how did you begin your path into business?
It all started when I was 11 years old.
Ooh.
It really did. my sister was getting a $5 allowance and I was getting a 50-cent allowance. And one day I figured it out and I said to my dad, "What gives? What the heck?" Yeah. He says, "I'm going to teach you a very valuable lesson. Go out and earn it." And so immediately, I mean, I went out and I remember a friend of mine had 3 paper routes and she had asked me one time, "Do you want one of my paper routes?" And it was early in the morning and I grew up in Boston. So little town, little beach town outside of Boston. It was darn cold during the winter. And I said, I had originally said no, but when he said that, I was like, I was driven. So I went back and I said, "You know what? I'll take that paper route." And she goes, "Well, I'm giving up this one too. Do you want this?" So it was a Boston Globe and a Boston Herald, the morning edition. And I said, "I'll take it." So on one paper route alone, I made $40 a week. Now it was 50 cents versus $40. With the other one, I made about $30. So I was making $70 a week. So then she had a third paper route that was in the afternoon, the Patriot Ledger. I took that. And now I'm making about $120 a week. And I'm winning sales contests, which give incentives. So there's cash bonuses, there's Red Sox tickets, there's Patriots tickets, there's Bruins tickets. So I just excelled. I love the competitive nature of, with myself. It's like, how much money can I really make? How successful can I be? And my dad caught on. He goes, "You really took a hold of this. You ran with this." So he was at a flea market and he found a book called How I Raised Myself from Failure to Success in Selling by Frank Bettger. I still have the book. And that was way before I ever knew what a highlighter was. So I'm underlining in pencil and all that stuff. But it was about organization and creating systems and making sure that you choreograph your week to be productive. And so I developed a philosophy about entrepreneurship at a very young age.
Hmm.
And so that ended up being mowing every lawn during the summer, shoveling driveways, hanging Christmas lights. And soon my sister still was just making $5 a week for her allowance for doing chores. I was making almost $400 a week, by doing this thing. And I'm still just barely in high school. So I became a serious student of, number one, looking for opportunities, finding a bike that was getting ready to be thrown away, fixing it up and selling it. Um, just any opportunity that I possibly could. And one day, a friend of mine from another town, his father owned a bike store. And he goes, "You know how to make a lot of money. You read your books and everything." He just noticed everything that I was doing. He goes, "My dad's, thinking about closing down the shop because people just aren't buying. They're walking in and they're not buying. You want to come in and just kind of talk to him?" And I said, Who am I? I'm just, 17-year-old kid." And so I walked in and we ate, drank slush puppies and ate popcorn and just watched people come in. And we just noticed that his dad didn't engage with people when they walked in and then they walked out. I'm like,
Mm.
you should capture the information of the interested prospect walking in. They came in for a reason. They drove in their car, they got out of the car, they walked in, they looked around, they didn't see what they were looking for. Ask them some questions. "What are you looking for? Maybe we have it in the back. Maybe we can order for you." And that one thing kept that bike store open. And my friend ultimately took over it. And so he goes, "You should do this for a living." So that story will lead into how I was a former struggling consultant. But, you know, the, the entrepreneurial bug had been planted in me very early in life.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I can relate so strongly to that. We sound like we had similar upbringings. My dad was not one who was real big on allowances, but there were always jobs to be done. And we got the lectures early at our house that, I think I was starting kindergarten when I got told, like, if you're going to go to college, you're earning your way there, or you're getting scholarships, or you're doing something to create that path, not me. And I was a pretty serious kid. And so, like you, I was mowing lawns and raking leaves and, getting odd jobs and got multiple paper routes. And, but it's, that's an interesting, like, I love the topic of whether people are naturally inclined towards entrepreneurship or whether it's something that's developed in them through, nurture, right? Parents encouraging it, giving them opportunities, or a combination of both, perhaps.
Yeah, I don't know. There was an internal drive in me that I wanted to be kind of better than my sister.
Mm,
There was also one that I wanted my dad to be proud of me because we had a
yeah.
very difficult household. We grew up in an alcoholic home, so there was a lot of disconnect from in
Mm,
nurturing and all that stuff. So I was trying to make him proud. But the other thing
Mm.
is I wanted money because I wanted to play video games. I wanted to buy slush puppies and, and food whenever I
Very
wanted to,
practical. That's right.
magazines, Mad Magazine and all that other stuff at the time. I'm an 80s kid. So, you know, there was a drive within me. There was a
Hmm.
motivation, a personal motivation to do it. And when I did it, I didn't want to do it, you know, half-assed, if you will. Excuse me for using
Mm.
language, but I didn't want to do it that way because I didn't. Again, I was looking for my father's,
Yeah.
y- you know,
Approval.
um,
I can relate
approval.
to
Yeah.
that as well too. And you know, and even now I have to examine my motivations for some of the things I do in my business, right? Because I have this idea in my head that I think started probably when I was 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You know, it was those ages I was walking the neighborhoods asking for odd jobs and doing things that, like, I think of my kids now, I would never let them walk around in the neighborhood and do some of that stuff.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
But it is, it's so fascinating to see how people connect to the idea of entrepreneurship. So obviously you had this talent, your friend spotted it in you, right? You could sit back and watch even the simple thing that was going wrong and label it. Talk to us about that next transition into, becoming, and I know there's probably quite a bit that happens between that initial story and becoming a consultant or, coaching others, but talk to us a little bit about how you got there and what your early consulting years looked like.
Yeah. I originally started out when I got out of high school as an EMT and a paramedic, and back in Boston, and I worked for a private company and did work for the city of Boston,
Mm,
and I had some things happen personally that um, I was ready to move. Just wasn't happy there. And a woman I was dating, her uncle was the chief of police of Monterey Park Police Department, which is a couple towns away from me right here. And so we flew out, and I took a test and I passed for the LA County Sheriff's Department. And they said, be here in 2 weeks. And so I moved out, and, you know, the testing was slow. We had just gone to war in the Gulf in 1990.
mm,
And so when I arrived at this house from driving cross country, I turned on Tony Robbins. And it was the first time I had ever seen Tony Robbins with Fran Tarkenton, those old commercials, if you can remember them. And I just loved what I heard. It was a lot of what I had read in books before, and it just inspired me to tap into my entrepreneurial roots because I had no job. I had a little bit of savings to get me through, um, but that the paramedic and police job didn't work out. They could because they stopped testing because of the war and all that stuff.
mm,
So I had to make money. And
mm.
so I just tapped into, I started reading a bunch of books. Everybody who endorsed Tony, I read Tony's books. I read everybody who endorsed him. I just got really fired up and started reading those books. And I started doing sales, and I started, selling insurance, and everything and anything that I could do to make money and to be entrepreneurial. I was now driven again
Yeah.
by this inspiration, by hearing these messages. Um, Again, someone asked me, says, you should really help other people. You're really good. You know who said that was the rep from Tony Robbins' organization. She goes, you're so
Ah.
good. You're so helpful. You should really do this. And coincidentally, I had gotten a book as a gift for participating in a special program for Tony from Jay Abraham. And it was the Mr. X book, if anybody knows that book. And it was a pirated copy that someone took Jay's information and published a book on it. And Jay had gotten hold of it and was reselling it. So I got it as a gift for
Mm.
participating in a testimonial program with Tony Robbins. And so I got that, and it was all marketing. And I said, this is good stuff. And so I helped a few other people free of charge and all this stuff. And then finally someone said, you should do this full time. And I said, okay, that sounds like a good idea.
Getting bonked on the head
Well, I
by
knew
by
how
the
to help other
universe.
people. I did not know how to be a consultant, did not know that the typical says my internet connection is unstable.
It did get unstable for a second.
I'm back up strong.
Okay.
So
All right.
do you want to ask
Uh,
the question again?
yeah, well, and I think I had just said you were getting bonked on the head by the universe, right, with this message, like you're good at it. This is something that you can do. And I personally love that that message came from the Tony Robbins organization, because you were such a fan of his work at the time. So that had to be a really powerful thing to receive.
Yeah. And so it really did. It was kudos. It was a big pat on the back that I needed. My family had kind of, as I mentioned before, I was an alcoholic home. We were kind of separated a little bit. And so I wasn't getting a lot of kudos or, that a boys on the back. So I really needed that.
Mm.
And so, I got some ideas from a book that I got, and I started helping some friends who had businesses, just, suggestions. It's like when you offer help and people haven't asked for it, it's not always well received. But in this case, a couple of them had said, "You're right. I should be doing that. I should be capturing the names and information of people that walk in. I should be offering something else when they buy this. I should be following up after the sale to make sure they're happy with the sale," things like that.
Right.
And so that's when I got offered. They said, "You should do this for full time." And so I started. And I thought everybody needs help, because I see these businesses and they're working too hard, they're not making enough money, they just need help. But that's not the way it is. I quickly found, after number one, after being broke for about 2 years, and I was engaged at that time with high expectations for being someone who was successful.
Mm.
um, I paid a lot of money to learn how to do it right. And I quickly learned that, an expert is sought out. They are not, they don't chase.
Hmm.
So, and what I was doing, I was chasing the people. Here, you need what I have to offer. Here, you need to make more money. You need to fix your advertising and all this stuff. So again, after paying almost 100 grand in fees and courses and, things like that, seminars, I finally figured out how to do it right. And that has changed my life. And
Mm.
so, I jokingly, people say, actually, someone called me the former struggling consultant, but I said, "Yeah, I struggled once." And they said, "You're the former struggling consultant." So I have lived by that moniker for the last 15, 20 years.
I love it when other people label us. I've got a couple of questions for you, but before we dig into those, let's take a pause and hear from our episode sponsor today. Okay, we are back. This is Heather Pierce Campbell, and I am connecting today with Craig Valine, a marketing specialist and somebody who is sharing a bunch of wisdom about not only his journey, but what he has learned to teach others. And Craig, there were a couple things you said. One, this concept about experts don't chase, they're sought
Mm,
after, right? And you
yeah.
realizing that. I think anybody who's listening who has struggled with marketing or struggled with connecting to exactly the right prospect or struggled with generating the kind of income that they want to create. They understand that feeling of chasing versus being sought after,
Yeah.
right? And then you moved into also talking about your education and what it took, paying other people $100,000, right, to get an education and to inform your journey. Talk to us first about the moment, the kind of the epiphany you had about the being sought after versus chasing, and then I want to ask you some things about your education.
Well, this one is easy.
Mm.
For the people that I used to chase, and someone would say, "Yeah, I need some help," but it was very often not the help that I was great at. When you are, especially when you're engaged and you have to prove a point and you have to bring in some money, you'll do anything to just get some money to pay the bills. And so I did a lot of things out of my scope of expertise.
Mm.
And that led to people taking advantage of me, speaking to me in a not so polite way, dictating the terms of how
Mm.
and will and in what amount I would get paid and things like that. Those were the people that I chased. That I said, "I can help you with that. I can do that. I can help you." Versus, and you can relate to this, I'm sure, as a podcast guest and a speaker, is that when you speak at the front of the room and someone says, "I so connected with what you just said. I loved your story about this. How can I learn more about you?" And then they follow you into well, just for lack of a better word, your funnel.
Yeah.
They'll reach out to you, they'll go to your website, they'll listen to your podcast, they'll enter their email address and name. Now, we didn't have all that back when I was, started out, but I did speak. I spoke at
Mhm.
Rotary meetings, I spoke at networking groups. I'm a past president of the California Junior Chamber of Commerce, so I made sure that I was a resident marketing expert. I was
Mm.
helpful first. And
Right.
that's another thing. It's like if you give first, you bond with your audience by giving some useful, helpful information. People, very often, as much as they could probably do it on their own, possibly, they will seek you out because they
Yeah.
still have questions,
Mm.
unanswered questions that they just feel they need an expert to help them with. And so, I mean, that simple example says exactly how that happened. The more I
Yeah.
spoke, the more I did public events, the more that people did when teleseminars came along, and then webinars, and so on and so forth. My life got tremendously easier.
Yeah.
And I think that is a common occurrence among experts.
Yeah. Well, and I think so many, at least I can speak from my experience, so many of the people that I serve are givers. So that whole give first philosophy is really natural for a lot of the folks that I work with. But, at some point, you have to change that conversation when you're enrolling clients, when you're actually running a business, making a sale, right? It becomes a different conversation. But that giving first, there is a magic that happens when you show up and just educate or give or make somebody's life better. And even in my experience, even if they don't come to you right away. So let's say you're talking to somebody at a Rotary Club, or you're giving a local event some support by being one of their speakers. What happens is, even if that person does run off and try to do the thing on their own, usually they get frustrated at some point, right? Because there's a reason we're an expert in this particular area and they're not. And so it's like planting seeds. The way I think about it is like, you just have to keep planting those seeds because it inevitably will bring them back around if you do it right.
You know, that's so true. There was a specialty dentist here in LA who met me about 8 years ago. I spoke at a UCLA dental school alumni meeting, and three of my clients were in attendance there, and I got introduced to this man while I was there. And his first response to me when he met, he goes, "Well, but have you ever worked with a periodontist?" And it's like as if a periodontist is extremely different than a prosthodontist, an endodontist, and all these other things. And I said, no, but the principles are the same. The fundamentals remain the same.
Mm-hmm.
So for the next 8 years, he would follow me. He subscribed to my email list. He came to two of my public events. He listened and watched as the people that I work with from that group grew their practices, who grew personally and professionally as a result of working with me. And then 8 years later, he's now worth $30,000 to me. And we just started working together about 7 months ago, and he's happy. He's excited. He just he didn't beg me. He goes, "How do we work together? How what I basically I want to give you money." That's what he said. And
Mm-hmm.
so it takes what it takes. Some
Yes.
people are sold the moment they meet you. Some people it takes time, and you can't just get rid of people if they fit your ideal prospect profile.
Yeah. Well, and I love that phrase, it takes what it takes, because I think people can buy into this idea that, like, oh, you've got to convert somebody within a certain time frame, right? Or they're lost. And it's like, no, to me, you've got to invite them into a conversation and then keep having that conversation until the timing is right for them, right? And what happens, I think, is people just stop having the conversation. They
Right.
stop delivering the value, and then that's how they lose people. But I agree, it's always fascinating to me when somebody does come out of the woodwork, and you'll learn, like, oh, I've been following your work for years, and you're like, what? How am I just now knowing about you, right? And so
Right.
in modern times, we don't always know when somebody's seeing our stuff. We don't always know who's on the other side consuming our videos or whatever it is that we're putting out, but it's really important that we keep doing that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So talk to us, because I think there are also a lot of people that can relate to kind of the pain that you've expressed about this $100,000 education,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Part of it is thinking that I know better than them. I've
Mm,
tried that. I did this, it didn't work. Um, No, people won't do that. You set up your biases ahead of time instead of listening to what the coach or the expert says. There's a
Mm.
recipe for success in just about everything we can do as humans. And if we just follow the recipe to the T and get rid of our own biases, like I know better, instead of those tomatoes, I should use these tomatoes, and instead of that spice, I should use this spice. It's very much a recipe for success. And if we try to deviate from it, we're going to get a different result. And that was
Mm.
me for a while. I know better. And
Got
so
it. So
once
I'm hearing you say that you were consuming the services, but not following it to the letter. Is that right? So you were consuming a lot and just still trying to pave your own way?
Well, and the other thing is too, and I know many, many entrepreneurs who are guilty of this. I'm just a junkie for
Mm.
information. It's like I read this and I'm like, oh, there's another seminar coming up. I got to get into that. Oh, I got to get Dan Kennedy's new product. Oh, I got to read this book. And then
Whatever whatever that gene is, it's embedded into my genetics as well. Yes.
and you're the perfect type of client for me. A buyer is a buyer is a buyer, and that's who we want. We want people who invest in themselves.
Yeah.
Especially as you and I as experts, we want people who consume this stuff on a regular basis, not people who we have to go back and forth with why
Mm.
it's valuable. They know why it's valuable because they've been investing in themselves on a regular basis. The
Mm.
lesson for me was, let's actually implement what we learned before we move on to the next course or book.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. No, and that part is huge about implementation because I do think depending on people's personality types, and I'm sure you know this having worked in the space that you work in for however many years, certain expert personalities are the kinds that naturally feel like they know better. They shouldn't have to follow somebody else's system, or, they really need to sit with it for a while or test it out themselves before they're willing to invest or try something new. And all day long, the people who take fast action and just experiment and try it are going to win the race.
The other thing is that ego that we know better than they do. It really comes down to, are you sick and tired of being sick and tired? That happens with all change, whether it's losing weight, quitting smoking, stopping drinking, stopping drugs. It's like, my life is not acceptable anymore. I must do that. I just started a challenge, a physical challenge, 4 weeks ago, called the Deliberate Discomfort Challenge. And it's based on 6 areas of personal development, which includes physical, social, spiritual, emotional, professional, you know, and it's all in every day. Why? Because I saw a picture of myself.
Yeah, I heard that. We can
So
just pause for a second and see if it comes back.
it looks okay.
Okay.
So I'm going to just pick up where I left up.
Yeah.
So I've been doing this challenge called the Deliberate Discomfort Challenge, and it covers 6 areas of personal growth, including physical, spiritual, social, emotional, inspirational, and it's all encompassing. But I'm only able to do that challenge because I got sick and tired of the way that I felt and I looked. I gained, like, I'm not even going to give the amount. I gained a lot of COVID pounds because
Oh, so many
I've been
so
sitting
many
in this
people are right
chair
there with you.
doing nothing, not getting up and doing all the activities that I was used to doing.
Yeah.
And I saw a picture of myself and I said, no way, I cannot live this way anymore. That motivated me to major change. And the same thing happened when I went from failure to success. I reached a
Mhm.
point where I said, God, I don't want to live this way anymore. Please help me do something different. I'm not a truly religious person. I believe in God, but I just looked up and I said, please, I'll do whatever you tell me to do. And what's funny is, the moment I did that, let's say a moment equals a day. A day, a day later, I got an email from the guy starting the new GKIC chapter in the Pasadena area,
Mm.
and I had been waiting for this to happen. So I reached out to him and I said, I'll get 8 people there. I sent it out to like 200 people, and I went, and he said, look at all the people you brought. And he goes, we should talk, because he was from LA. I was from Pasadena. The meeting was in Pasadena. And he says, I want your help. I goes, I'm going to make you the director of this local organization. You'll be the voice, and yada, yada, yada. And that was one of the major turning points. And guess what that included? Being at the front of the room every month, being emailing, sharing content, things like that, and an association with Dan Kennedy and Bill Glazer, which added more credibility. But people started to see me as the expert, to see
Mm.
me as the person who could help them reach their goals in the fastest time possible. And that's when it all changed. And I said, there's something to this thing.
Well, definitely. And the thing I love about that story, and people can call it whatever they want, but to me, it really reflects the power of decision. When
Mm,
we decide, things happen, things
yeah.
move, the universe aligns. Like it wants to know what we want so that opportunities can line up. And whether you believe that the universe supports us or not, whether you just think it's the way the human mind works, I don't think it really matters whether you believe one way or the other, but we will see and we will recognize opportunities and things that we need to do when we decide.
Yeah. When you finally make a decision that big in your life, all of a sudden other decisions come more easily.
Hmm.
As Tony Robbins would say, start making more decisions, and see how it benefits you. And finally, it's just all of a sudden things are easier in my life. It's like life is difficult, life is challenging, but things are easier in my life because I can say yes or no. Yes, I want that. No, I don't want that. That sort of
Yeah.
thing.
Well, and I have personally seen how many people building their businesses get stuck in decision paralysis, or they don't know which path to follow or what thing to try, so they just don't move. They just don't do anything, right? But I love that story as a way that things open up when you decide. Now, I want to be sure that we get into, because I love, the whole concept of how to find the hidden pot of gold within your business, which I know is one of the things you teach people how to do. Do you want to walk us through that a little bit?
Sure. And would you like me to go through those 5 sources of power that we talked about?
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
just for the sake of time.
Yep.
So I, like we talked about earlier, there people are already doing things to grow their business. If they are making money in their business, they're doing something that gets the attention of someone else that says, "Yeah, I'm interested. I want your product or service." So the hidden pot of gold are what we call these leverageable opportunities. Leverage
Mm.
means, can we get a better result for the same time, money, and effort? And we have these assets. They're not like, a computer or something like that. They're just things that can't have value that we leave either underutilized. We're not using them enough to get all the money we can out of it or all the value, or you just don't even realize they're there. So the pot of gold is just lying there. And I believe there are 5 sources of power of that gold sitting right in your business. Number one is your list in the relationship you have with that list. Now, people have their own biases to receiving emails and things like
Mm.
that, but you have to get over that. Email works. That's why it exists. So we have to communicate with our list. And if you don't like email, then send a regular newsletter, send a regular direct mail piece to your list. Stay in touch one way or another. Make phone calls, however it is. But you have to maintain a relationship with the list that you have. And those may include current clients, past clients, future clients. It may
Mm.
even exist referral partners, people that you can form partnerships with um, to get referrals and likewise offer referrals. The second one is your reputation. What are you known for? What do you want to be known for? When people seek you out, it's like you're the legal website warrior, right?
Mm.
So it's like that's what you're known for. If you go through your website, I can figure out exactly what you do. When you arrived on my LinkedIn page, it says exactly what I do. I tackle the hidden marketing assets and overlooked opportunities within a business. And if clearly stated, if I could enunciate it, it's like, you're doing this, let's do this. Let's get
Yeah.
a far better result for what you're already doing. Number three is your marketing. If you have
Mm.
marketing that's working, that's an asset that has potential power for you. What we have to do is more of it. So if you're already doing emailing your list for instance, once a month, I know people who do that. I know people who don't even do that. But let's say you're doing it once. Let's try once a week. Let's try once a day. Let's try several times a day. I mean, I'm sure you're on some list where you get 3 or 4 a day. I do. Ben Settle, Frank Kern, many people like that. They email strategically. And guess what? Because I have a relationship with them, I don't mind. Now,
Mhm.
some of them I go, oh, I already saw that, or I know what this is about, so I delete it. But I'll look to see what's coming in because I have a relationship with that person. And that's what's most important. If you email the people you don't have a relationship with, they will unsubscribe. That's
Mhm.
okay. But if you want to create a bond with your list. Number 4 is specific marketing advantage. What do you do that no one else can, does, or will? What do you offer that no one else can, does, or will? Do you have specific expertise that nobody else does? Are you communicating it more than someone else is?
Mhm.
That's the law of preeminence. Being out there when nobody else is doing it and you are, you kind of create a category of one for yourself. So being able to articulate that specific marketing advantage is critical. And number 5, which is probably the most important, is clarity. Clarity of communication, clarity of who your prospect is, clarity of your marketing message, making sure it's clear and understandable, and it's irresistible. Clarity is critical, and without clarity, you don't really have a lot of the other things. But they're all valuable, and they're
Yeah.
all just sitting like a big pot of gold in your business. And if you're struggling and you go, I don't know where to go, I'm making some money, but I'm not doing it. Tackle those 5 sources of power right now, and you
Mm.
will absolutely positively generate more sales.
Well, I mean, you shared some great examples within that list, and even the first one, the power of a list or a database or whatever, wherever you collect your people and their contact information, and how you communicate with them. As an attorney, because I did most of my career, in the traditional sense of law, building my practice, working directly with my clients, and it's been the last handful of years that I created this whole second business, right? The Legal Website Warrior, and really serving a very, very specific niche of the small business marketplace. And it took me a while because I'm a mom of a couple little crazy people that demand all kinds of, time and attention, and it's wonderful. But being consistent in my business was not one of my early strengths. It just wasn't there
Right.
yet. I was a hard worker and I'd put in all kinds of hours, but having any kind of consistency with some of my patterns took a little while to develop. And it was interesting because the first year that I was able to hell or high water commit to emailing every single week like clockwork, and it took several hours to put a thoughtful personal email, lots of resources together. It's not for everyone. It was fascinating to watch what happened. I got to know my list. People emailed back. When I didn't email, I actually had a period where I wasn't well for a little while. I got emails from people like, "Where are you? I didn't
Right.
see your email this week," and like genuinely worried and reaching out to make sure I was. It blew me away. Like, they're listening, they're paying attention, they're actually opening
Yeah.
my emails and reading this stuff. And then I would hear from people sporadically about like one of the stories I'd shared somewhere deep in the middle of an email, and it's always fascinating to get that feedback and go, "Oh, okay, this matters. It is making a difference." And until you're consistent, you don't know it and you don't see it. And
Right.
right? And there was one month actually during COVID where I couldn't work because of some family obligations and stuff that came up. And I just sent like a kind of a splash sale email the end of that month to my list and generated like $7,000 just in quick sales because I had been emailing consistently, right? I had nurtured that list. And that to me was the first example of like how powerful that could be because I'd never done that before.
Right.
I tend to, be a nurturer and really nurture that relationship. And I don't do a lot of selling, direct selling to my list. And so I
Yeah.
did it and it worked.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But it's, I think it really takes observing what it is that you're doing and also being able to do something consistently before you're going to notice what are the results. Otherwise, it's just too sporadic.
Right. What you just mentioned is exactly the response you should get from people. I used to do a regular mailed newsletter, and when they didn't get it, they would like, "Where's your newsletter?" I look forward to that every month. And when I get emails, when I get responses to, "Oh my, I love that email," or "I love your story," "I love that," I can't do it
Mm,
now, but I would love to do it later. And it's like they're reading the emails,
yeah.
and that's what you look for.
Yeah.
That's what you look for.
Oh, it's so nice. Well, and I love this idea that your reputation is a pot of gold, right? I think
Yeah.
it's easy for people to overlook that.
Yeah. Who you associate with matters. What
Mm,
people say about you matters. What they say about in your testimonials and your accolades. What you say about yourself, your reputation. It's like I used my son in my marketing for a long time. He was affectionately known as Mini Me. Now he's college boy. And people still ask me, how old is Mini Me now? And I say, oh, he's a sophomore in college. Oh my God. That's
yeah.
my reputation. My reputation is of being a great father. And I haven't
Hmm.
said that I'm a great father. I never will say that I'm a great father. I'm very humbled by that because I
Right.
do my darndest to just be satisfactory.
Don't
I
we
mean,
all? Right.
it's humbling to have such a good kid who turned out
Mm,
so well. And, it's like I just did what I could. But,
hmm.
the reputation is that I'm a loving father, that I go to all his events, I talk about him all the
Mm,
time. And I strategically created that because by using him in that scenario, it's kind of like personality and copy. Use your life, use your pets, use your
mm,
partner, use your child, create a story, create a character so that people can have a connection device. If they don't just connect, everyone, there's another lawyer somewhere that someone can connect with, but they're going to connect with you because number one, your angle about which your specific marketing advantage, if you will, but
mm,
they're going to connect with you being a mom, being a former corporate attorney, being all these things. Just the identification is what they need. They need to bond, and that's how they'll stay with you for life, is that bond that they have with you,
hmm.
that
That's
they
right.
feel they have with you.
That's right. Well, and that is, being able to experience that and be on the receiving end of messages that let you know, like, oh wow, this person. And I ran, one of the things I did last year is, in addition to my newsletter and being consistent every single week, I ran the moment COVID hit, and I realized, holy cow, whole bunch of people are going to be in trouble, and they don't have their businesses online, they don't have their stuff figured out, they are capable of doing amazing work, but we've got to get them online and doing that work. I ran a weekly Ask Me Anything live with a big focus to help people understand the online space and legal stuff related to being online and how to get it all, put together, and doing that every week the entire year.
Wow.
It was wonderful, though, to see people come out of the woodwork that had connected with me 5 or 6 years previously and say, you created this one contract and it changed my coaching business. And then come tell me what they're doing now and give them some additional help. And it made me realize, like, wow, when you're able to serve somebody in a way that at a future point in time, when they have a need come up again, they're going to come find you versus go somewhere else in the marketplace.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that was really fun. And I love on your list the specific marketing advantage, right? Knowing your special sauce. Do you
Yeah.
think that's hard for people to figure out? Do you think people struggle with that one?
I think they do. They unique is a word, so that stems from the word unique selling proposition or unique
Mm,
selling. Uh, I don't even know what else they call it, but USP, unique
yep,
selling proposition. It's an
yep.
old marketing term coined in the '60s by Reality and Advertising, Russell Reeves, but it really means, if the prospects are always asking themselves, why should I buy from you? Why should I choose you versus every other option available to me, including doing nothing right now?
Mm-hmm.
So if I need what you have to offer, why you versus every other option? And so you have to be able to answer that. And there's easy thing. Actually, I have the best way to answer it. I'm the only.
Mm,
We're the only. So we're the
mm,
only ones, for a retail store, it could be we're the only ones open 24 hours. We're the only ones who have this product and service in the Los Angeles area. We're the only ones who provide a money back guarantee, no questions asked. If you can say we're the only, there's your specific marketing advantage. If you're the only person doing legal website languages and disclaimers and courses and on this topic, even if you're not the only, but you were the first one, or you have a slant,
mm-hmm.
I was the first one to do it in the coaching arena. I was the first one to do it in this arena. You can isolate it. A lot of people just get so focused. I don't know. I don't know. Well, what do you do better than anybody else?
Mm-hmm.
Communicate that.
Yeah,
That
that's
everybody has a unique talent.
no, I love that. And being able to And I love that brief sentence, I am the only, because it really gets people thinking in a different way, right? Blue ocean versus red ocean.
Yes. Yeah, for
And
sure.
that's powerful if you can come up with that. The final point on clarity. Talk to
Mm.
us about the importance of having clarity in your message, in your business. What does that mean?
Well, it means be specific rather than random.
Mm,
Don't, entrepreneurs are head cases where we've got so many ideas and so much information ran, like I said, I was one course after another, so much information. Maybe I should
mhm,
have this as my client. Maybe I should be doing this. Maybe I should offer this. Maybe, it's like, boop, have clarity.
mhm,
Who do you most identify with? Who look through your list and what are the common traits? What are the commonalities between the people you've done business with in the past? What is your unique skill? What is your unique trait?
mm,
What is, you just have to be clear. It's just being clear versus being random. And once you're clear, have purpose.
mm.
Do that thing over and over and over and over again. And that goes back into, what do you want to be known for? When you're known for this, you're going to be the number one expert people are drawn to.
Yeah.
And so there is not another marketing performance strategist on this earth unless they copied me. I'm known as the person who enhances marketing performance. Now, my mentor, Jay Abraham, does that, but he's 1,000 times more expensive than I am, you know, but, but I'm the only marketing performance strategist, as far as I know, in the world. And
Mhm,
so I'm known as that, and I make it
mhm.
clear that that's the case. Um, Again, clarity. Am I a marketing consultant? Am I you just have to get straight. The best way to do it is just start writing down what number one, who you are, what you do, who's your best client. Who is not your best client is also just as important, to repel those people so that you don't waste a lot of time, money, and effort. Being clear about what your price point is, being clear on why you're in business in the first place. It's like, I'm
Mhm.
in business for the freedom. Let me be clear. To make an impact. I want others not have to struggle like I did when I was in business.
Mhm.
Number two, it's really to create a lifestyle around my family, my life. When my son was growing up, it absolutely positively was all around dropping him off at school, volunteering at school, picking up from school, being available, and then I'll make time for my clients. You know, but clarity just means be specific about who, what, where, why, when, and how, and you will most likely have great results as a result of that.
Yeah. Well, I feel like this brings us full circle back to the piece of the conversation earlier where you were saying, in the early days when you just needed to make a buck, you were willing to try to help whoever, right? You were trying to do the work with whoever crossed your path, and that caused some problems. You specifically said you worked with people who didn't value you in the way they should, or
Right.
had you working outside the scope of what you wanted to be doing. And this is, I think, one of the other benefits of clarity, because from the legal perspective, I have to help people unwind those scenarios when they go outside the bounds and something goes wrong, right? And very often I tell them, like, there are red flag client scenarios and there are red flag clients, and being able to spot what makes somebody a red flag client and what is a red flag scenario. It's usually when we don't have clarity about
Right.
either the service that we're providing, what we're willing to do, whether we're willing to fudge the lines for this particular person because they asked for it. That's generally a red flag. If somebody's saying, I want it done this way, and that's not within your system, it's not how you treat other clients, or it's not the service you provide to other clients, right? It's probably going to backfire in some way.
Yeah, you have to be clear about what you're willing to do and what you're willing not to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I am a big proponent of having a script, just a guide, bullet points to go through, make sure you covered these things, and if anything is red flagged, like you said, that's out of my scope of expertise, but I can refer you to somebody else.
Totally. Being fast to refer is huge. I feel like it could save so many people heartache if they were better at that.
Amen.
Yeah. So, of the five, I'll call them pots of gold, the sources of power that you just talked about, which one is the most important? Where do people start if they're trying to take a kind of a second look at their business and reevaluate what's going on?
Well, I kind of alluded that clarity was very, very important. But if you
Mm-hmm.
need to generate some quick income, start with your list.
Mm.
Start with, that is because that's part of the marketing that will start, doing. S- you just said it too, is that during the COVID time, you got online every week and did a broadcast, right? Or did a live event.
Mm.
Create some value for your list. Start that relationship and say, hey, I'm going to be doing a live event. I want to help in any way I can with your expertise, that sort of thing. And say, you've got questions, I've got answers, come on
Mm.
board and ask anything you'd like to do. Just start the relationship. So number one, you can bond with them. You can tell your story about where you've been and why you haven't been online, and make it up to them. And then,
Mm-hmm.
don't be afraid to ask for action. Give them something irresistible that they can't refuse, whether it's a free resource or whether it's something that they will pay for. And the reason I say it's okay to give away something free, get them used to taking action again. If they can make propositions and offers, it's okay. Just get
No worries.
okay. So just get in the habit of making offers, whether they are free offers or whether they're for money offers. But
Yeah.
yeah, start with the list. Just
Yeah.
get ready and don't be afraid, because you might not like emails or you might not like receiving communications. Email works.
Mm-hmm.
Sending letters in the mail works. Picking up the phone works. Build upon those relationships.
Yeah, I love that. Yep, and you gotta keep doing it. You gotta do it consistently and keep it up so that people know you're not going anywhere,
That's right.
right?
That's right.
So Craig, for people that are listening and are like, gosh, I want to learn more about Craig. I want to check him out online. I want to learn more about how he supports his clients. Where do you like to show up online?
I have a free Facebook community that I created for consultants, coaches, and subject matter experts. That website, or that URL to get there, is www.expertgrowthandprofits.com, expertgrowthandprofits.com. We have a good community that just started growing, and we do some live trainings in there. We get shares for what people are going through. It's a way to bond with other consultants, coaches, and experts. I really love that community, and I'm doing that as a passion. Because like
Mm-hmm.
I said, when I started out, I failed until I figured it out, and I just don't want people to have to fail as long as I did, right? Or struggle with a part of their business. And
Mm-hmm.
if you're interested in more, you can go to craigvalinemarketing.com. That's my main website right now. There's lots of different ways that we can connect. But on there, you roll down the page, you'll see that there's a free resource called 10 Ways to Leverage Old Accumulated Leads. So if you've ever gotten
Mm.
leads that you never did anything with, we just talked about the list, right? Or if you've gone to physical events and you had a stack of business cards, I have bags of business cards. I have 10 ways to leverage those to get a better result from them and get them back doing business with you if you want. That is available right on the website. So I'd love for anybody who wants that to grab it.
Awesome. So if you're listening, be sure to check out those links, including Craig's Facebook group, his website, where he's also got that free gift. And I will share those links, Craig, at the show notes page, which is legalwebsitewarrior.com/podcast. You can go there and find Craig's episode, and we'll have all of his links, including other places that he shows up on social media. Craig, it's been such a pleasure to connect with you today.
Absolutely.
I feel like, we could continue this conversation for hours longer. But for folks that are still listening, what final either action point do you want to leave them with, or takeaway for folks that have hung with us?
You know, with whatever you're doing to market and promote yourself, always be asking, how much better result can I get if I just tried a different approach, tried a different message, maybe tried a different media?
Mm.
I will share a quick story to emphasize my point. When I started out as a struggling consultant, I used to go to Chamber of Commerce meetings, and my primary market was consultants, experts, and uh, coaches. When I'd go, there'd be like one or two people there. And so I would, in those people, if you're lucky, maybe they invest in themselves, maybe they don't. When I switched my audience, when I stopped going to chamber meetings alone and I went to the Association of Independent Consultants, 95% of the room was my target audience.
Right.
And it took about the same time, money, and effort to go to that event and reach a broader audience. And that's what I mean. So we used that word test earlier in this conversation. Test one thing versus another to see, can I get a better result, or am I getting a good result, right now? And what else could I be doing? That sort of thing. Just don't ever settle for the results you're getting, because there's always an opportunity for a better result.
I love that. I feel like, that simple question of where am I showing up and how is that working is so powerful, because I think a lot of people will get attached to a platform, or they think like, oh, all my peers are here, this is what I should be doing. And actually all their people are over on LinkedIn, right? Or whatever. And I have found that time and again that people are just showing up in the wrong place. They could be having the same conversation in a different location and have drastically different results.
Absolutely, positively.
Yeah. Craig, such a pleasure to see you. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
I really look forward to having my listeners get to hear from you. Really appreciate it.